Today we are taking on what I think is maybe the creator's oldest and, frankly, most insidious enemy.
Oh, absolutely. It's that feeling we all get, that paralysis.
Exactly. It's perfectionism.
Yeah.
That gnawing sense that your project could be code, a novel, a business plan, anything.
Yeah.
It's not ready.
Right. It's not good enough to see the light of day, so you hide it. You keep polishing it in secret, waiting for this mythical day when it will finally be perfect.
And that feeling, it feels like you're aiming for high standards.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It masquerades as rigor.
But what it really is this tension between wanting the perfect ideal outcome.
And the cold, hard reality that you have to make progress. You have to move forward. We get this idea that if we just polish it a little longer, add one more feature.
We can somehow avoid all criticism.
Yeah.
Avoid failure.
Yeah. Preempts the judgment.
Exactly. And that delay, that constant waiting for ready, that is where great projects just go to die.
It's a form of internal sabotage, isn't it? It just dresses itself up as professionalism.
So the core theme for this deep dive is a maxim that I think sounds almost controversial on its face, but it is the engine of success. Done over cool. Perfect.
And we have to be super clear about what that means.
Yes.
This isn't a license to be sloppy or to rush things out without thought. It's about optimizing.
Optimizing for what, though?
For learning, for creating the fastest possible feedback loop, building momentum, and getting real proof from the market before you burn, months or even years refining an idea that might be fundamentally wrong.
Our mission today, then, is to get past the slogan. We're going to unpack the specific, repeatable tactics and, I think, the psychological shifts that allowed some incredible creators to ship their work long before it felt safe or ready.
And the sources we've curated are just fascinating. We've got 6 distinct, rich case studies. It's everything from the birth of open source kernel development
All the way to e-commerce and groundbreaking software platforms.
We are digging into the origin stories of giants. We're talking Linus Torvalds and Linux, the wild dare that started NaNoWriMo, the very rough early days of Buffer, Zappos, Dropbox, and Basecamp.
And across all these different fields, we're going to see this one critical trade-off they all made.
What's that?
They traded the comfort of their own ego, that desire to look smart and polished and perfect, for the brutal but clarifying truth of the market.
They chose execution. They chose speed and learning over sitting alone in a room trying to achieve a mythical sense of completeness.
And by digging into these stories, our goal is to distill those universal principles for you, the learner.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's start with an example that, it didn't just launch a product, it fundamentally changed the entire landscape of technology. It's one of the greatest stories of execution over perfectionism, maybe ever.
The birth of the Linux operating system.
Our sources take us back to Helsinki, Finland, 1991. Got a 21-year-old computer science student, Linus Torvalds.
Right. And he has one of these new, for the time, very powerful Intel 386 PCs. And he's just deeply frustrated with the main Unix-like system available for it, which was called MINEX.
And it's important to understand what MINS was.
Yes, absolutely. MINEX was an academic tool. It was designed by a professor, Andrew Tannenbaum, to teach students about operating systems. So it was clean, it was modular, it was beautiful intellectually, but it was small. It wasn't built to be this living, breathing, high-performance thing that could really push the hardware. And Linus, he wasn't even trying to build a whole new OS at first. He just wanted a better terminal emulator to connect to the university server.
It's the classic creator's trap, isn't it? That small little itch to fix something.
Turns into a creative avalanche.
Yeah.
He starts small, just writing a little hardware-specific code for his own machine, but one little improvement demands another. Then he needs file access, then memory management.
And pretty soon, this small personal thing has ballooned into something huge, something that, risks public exposure and, even more terrifying, public judgment.
And that's the hinge point of the story. The technical problem was huge, sure, but the real barrier was the social leap.
Right, because back then, in the early 90s, you couldn't just, hit publish on an app store.
Not at all. You had to post your work to Usenet, specifically to these technical news groups like comp.os.minix.
We should probably clarify for you listening what Usenet was like. It was, in many ways, the original decentralized, expert-driven internet.
And the technical forums were famous for being brutal, absolutely brutal. They were filled with professional programmers, PhDs, academics.
Who would correct you for sport. with like
Wow.
searing intensity.
Oh, yeah. Submitting your code there was like walking onto a stage for an immediate, merciless public technical review by the sharpest minds in the world. It was the ultimate proving ground.
And incredibly terrifying for someone with an unfinished project.
That's the cliff he was standing on. The perfectionist voice in his head must have been screaming, keep polishing it, fix all the bugs, make it look professional so you don't get absolutely flamed.
But he didn't. He chose the done-over-perfect path. And the language he used when he took that step is so revealing.
On August 25, 1991, he posts his now famous message to that news group. He's describing his little project, and he includes this incredible phrase that's basically his psychological armor.
What does he say?
He calls the project just a hobby. And he specifically says it won't be big and professional like new.
Just a hobby. I mean, that is everything, isn't it?
It's everything. Our sources call it the ultimate form of ego armor. It's a preemptive move to lower the stakes.
He's basically saying to this brutal community, hey, I know this is rough. I know you can tear it apart, but don't worry, I'm not trying to be a big shot here.
I'm not staking my whole reputation on this. It wasn't just modesty. It was a conscious tactic.
A tactic to allow himself to be imperfect in public without his ego taking a fatal blow. He reframed the whole conversation from, judge my final product, to, hey, can you help me test this raw idea?
And the result of that leap, immediate, stunning acceleration.
The first real release, Linux 0.01, followed so quickly, September 17th, 1991.
That's less than a month after that first post. In less than 30 days, it went from a private hobby to a real, tangible thing that was out there for public critique and, crucially, for public contribution.
Think about that speed. The key moment wasn't when the code was perfect. It was the social courage to share the imperfect code.
He decided that an unfinished thing out in the open, one that invited collaboration, was way more valuable than a perfect thing kept hidden on his hard drive.
And that is done over perfect, applied to deep, serious engineering. He launched not because it was ready, but because he needed help. And collaborators need something real to work with.
So why did this work so well? Our sources argue that perfectionism is really just a disguised delay of judgment. You spend months polishing alone trying to anticipate every problem.
But you can't. You have blind spots. Your assumptions about what people need or what problems matter most are almost always wrong.
Precisely. Linus Torvalds didn't just succeed because he was a brilliant programmer, which he was. He succeeded because he built a public, massive, decentralized feedback engine right from the start.
He shifted the focus. Instead of building until he felt safe, he released to get data. And then he built what the community immediately told him was important.
The market, in this case, the open source community, became his quality control team and his roadmap planner, all in one.
And this leads us straight to that famous piece of advice from Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. It's a maxim that sounds almost painful.
If you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late.
I mean, that just perfectly captures the trade-off, doesn't it?
It really does. You are making a calculated swap. You're trading a little bit of temporary ego discomfort, that feeling of being judged,
For something priceless.
clarity, and rapid course correction from the real world. That embarrassment is actually a useful signal. It means you've pushed past your private obsession and into the zone of public learning.
If you wait until you're totally proud of it, you almost certainly waited too long. You've missed the window to learn. Your brilliant initial assumptions need to be checked by reality.
So for you listening, how do you apply this? To whatever project you're on, you have to define your version 0.1 promise.
What's the one single clear job it has to do?
And then you have to be ruthless. Cut everything else that would delay the launch. Don't build the fancy sharing feature. Just make sure it can save the file. Don't write the 10 appendices. Just publish the core argument.
And the audience doesn't have to be the whole world. Find 10 honest people, not friends who will just say, it's great.
No, 10 people you trust to be brutally honest. 10 honest opinions are infinitely more valuable than 1,000 hypothetical ones swirling in your head.
And use the Linus Torvalds strategy. Name the flaws up front. Say it. This is rough. I'm testing one core idea. Please ignore the missing features and just tell me if this core thing works for you.
You lower the stakes for yourself and you reframe it for them. You're asking for help, not for a final grade. You're installing a feedback ritual. You are choosing to see over being safe.
If you want it to get better, you have to let it be seen. You ship the imperfection to get the feedback you need to eventually achieve greatness.
Okay, so From the very technical world of kernel development, let's pivot to the very personal and often very paralyzed world of creative writing.
It's the exact same psychological trap,
Yeah.
but the solution here involves a different kind of speed. It's about using sheer velocity to just shut down that internal editor.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
We're moving from high-tech code to literature. We're in the San Francisco Bay Area, July 1999, and we're talking about the genesis of NaNoWriMo.
National Novel Writing Month. It was started by a guy named Chris Beatty and his friends.
And Batty had that feeling that so many of us have, that little itch. I should write a novel.
Right. And for most people, should becomes someday, and someday almost always becomes never.
And why is that? It's because the pursuit of literary perfection leads directly to paralysis. The second you start writing, that little voice pops into your head.
This isn't good enough. That sentence is clunky. You need to go back and rewrite the first chapter before you can even think about the second.
The block for most aspiring writers isn't a lack of ideas. It's that the internal editor, the censor, shows up on day one, on paragraph 1, and demands quality control before any material even exists.
You're trying to generate the clay and sculpt the statue at the exact same time. It's impossible, it's frustrating, and it leads to a blank page.
So Batty designed a tactical solution, a dare, really. He got 21 of his friends together and set this public, non-negotiable goal.
Write 50,000 words in the month of November.
And that number, 50,000, it seems arbitrary, but it's strategically brilliant.
It's big enough that you have to keep moving. You simply don't have time to second-guess yourself. The sheer speed required shuts down the internal editor.
The goal is production, not perfection. The mechanism is pure velocity.
And our sources point out that the perfectionist's problem is a fundamental sequencing error.
What do they mean by that?
They mean you're trying to do two different jobs at once. Drafting, which is just generating raw material, making a mess, and editing, which is sculpting and polishing that mess.
And if you try to sculpt while you're still forming the clay, you just freeze. Because raw material is never pretty.
NaNoWriMo solves this by forcing a clear sequence. It makes word count, not quality, the only metric that matters during the drafting phase.
You stop asking, is this good? Which is a question that invites anxiety and paralysis.
And you start asking the only question that matters. Did I write today? It forces production over rumination.
That reframing is everything. And our sources bring in this fantastic, super actionable quote from the novelist Nora Roberts.
She says, I can fix a bad page. I can't fix a blank one.
That's it right there.
A blank page gives you zero leverage. You can't improve something that doesn't exist, but a messy, ugly, poorly written first draft.
That's inventory.
It's raw material. It's something you can work with. It is not a verdict on your talent as a writer. It's just the necessary first stage of the process.
It also shifts your identity.
Yeah.
You stop being someone who thinks about being a writer, and you become someone who finishes a first draft, no matter how bad it is.
You prove to yourself through speed that you are capable of completion. The quality can come later. Revision is a totally separate skill and a separate phase of the work.
Which is such a crucial distinction for any creative or long-form project. You don't discover the good version by trying to think your way to it in one go.
You discover it by producing the bad versions fast enough that you still have the energy and the time to go back and fix them. The goal is to build a streak of production, not to have one heroic, perfect day of writing.
So the actionable tactic here is something we call process protection. You have to build a firewall around the generation phase.
Split your sessions. 80% of your time should be just for drafting. And the sources suggest a hard rule for this. No backspace, no editing, just keep moving forward. And only 20% for cleanup.
You can never let the internal editor, the perfectionist, flip that ratio.
And be shamelessly messy in that first draft. If you can't remember a name or a fact, or you can't think of the right word, just use a placeholder.
Like what?
Write, fact check this, or insert better metaphor here, in all caps, or just a string of X's, whatever it takes to keep your fingers moving. The time you waste looking up the perfect word is time the internal editor uses to kill your momentum.
And here's a fantastic little micro tactic that writers swear by.
End your writing session on purpose, mid-sentence.
Why?
Because it makes tomorrow's start completely frictionless. You never face a blank page. You sit down, and there's already an unfinished thought waiting for you, practically begging to be completed.
You're protecting the process. You're ensuring that finishing comes first.
The core lesson of NaNoWriMo is that you get to high quality by finishing something you can then fix, not by waiting until you feel perfect enough to start. You trade isolated quality for sustained momentum.
So if the Linux example showed the value of shipping code for external collaboration, NaNoWriMo shows the value of shipping words for internal psychological momentum.
Okay, so next, we look at how to find out if anyone even cares about your idea at all before you invest all the time and money to actually build it.
This brings us to a foundational lesson in business and product development. It's all about shifting your effort from building something internally to validating it externally. And the story of Buffer is a perfect example of prioritizing proof over polish.
Right, we're in Birmingham, UK, October 2010. Joel Gascoigne, the founder of Buffer, has this simple, elegant idea for a social media tool. He wants a simpler way to schedule tweets, like a queue.
And like almost every builder, his first instinct was to just start coding. You fall in love with the elegance of the solution you can build.
But he stopped himself. He had this moment of critical self-awareness. He'd learned from past projects that spending 6 months building a perfect product that nobody wanted was the absolute definition of failure.
So he literally forced himself to stop writing code and to test the viability of the idea first.
And his solution was just a masterpiece of low-effort validation. Our sources call it offensively unglamorous.
What did you do?
He built a 2-page MVP, a minimum viable product. But there was no product, no backend, no scheduling, nothing. It was just a website designed to answer one question. Would anyone even consider using this if it existed?
So the first page was just the promise. Here's what Buffer will do for you. People would click a button and he'd capture their email.
And that was his first piece of validated learning. People were interested in the concept. But Joel was smart. He knew that interest is cheap, compliments are cheap.
Right, you tell a friend your idea, they say, oh, that's great, and you walk away feeling validated, but it means nothing.
Exactly. He needed to test for seriousness.
So he added a crucial second step, a pricing page. He put it between the promise and the email capture.
Now, this wasn't to make money yet. It was purely to test intent. People would click on a plan, like a free plan or a paid plan, and only then would they get to a page that said, sorry, we're not ready yet, but leave your email for early access.
And he was tracking which buttons they clicked.
He was tracking the clicks on the paid plans.
Now, hold on. The perfectionist, the critic, would say, isn't that misleading? It's a fake door. You're promising something that doesn't exist.
It's a fair challenge, but the sources argue that at this very early stage, the cost of slightly misleading a few early visitors is so much lower than the cost of building an unwanted product for 6 months.
You're mitigating massive risk.
You are. By putting that pricing step in, Joel was testing seriousness, not just curiosity. A click on a $15 a month plan is a high-quality signal. It shows someone is willing to assign value to your idea. It moves way past cheap compliments.
And that evidence, the clicks on the paid plans, that was the green light. That was what justified the real investment of his time and energy.
He only started building the actual functioning product after he had that validated learning. He had market proof in hand before he wrote the serious code.
The timeline just shows the genius of this. He set a public deadline. He launched a rough around the edges, but working product on November 30th. So about 7 weeks of nights and weekends.
And the validation was instant. He got his first paying customer within 4 days of that MVP launch. The code was built on truth, not on hope.
This highlights what our sources call the fatal reversal that most people make. The default habit is to put in all the effort, the building, the polishing at the moment of highest uncertainty before you've launched.
It's that cycle of build, polish, launch, and then just hope.
The Buffer method completely flips that risk model on its head. It's test, get evidence, build.
Done over perfect in this context means shipping evidence as fast as you possibly can. That way, when you finally commit the real effort, you know it's going to compound, not just evaporate because nobody wanted it.
So the actionable tactic here is to build that 2-page MVP. Page 1 is the promise. Page 2 is the action, the email capture.
And put that pricing decision or some other test of seriousness in between.
And then commit to a date that scares you a little. A public deadline is the ultimate antidote to perfectionism. It forces you to prioritize.
You stop arguing about tiny features and you start asking, what is the absolute most unglamorous minimum I have to ship to prove this core idea?
External urgency converts that internal perfectionism into strategic focus.
So don't chase perfection, chase proof. That's the lesson of Buffer. Validate the demand before you build the supply.
Okay, so that's testing willingness to pay.
Mm.
But what about testing the core behavior your business depends on? This brings us to an older and much more manual case study, the origins of Zappos.
This is the power of what's called the concierge MVP.
We're back in the Bay Area, 1999. An entrepreneur named Nick Swinmurn has this hunch that at the time everyone thought was ridiculous.
The idea that people will buy shoes online?
The objection was universal. No one is going to buy shoes without trying them on first.
So the perfectionist approach to solving this would be just debilitating. You'd spend years building a massive logistics system, warehouses, supplier contracts, a sophisticated website.
The perfectionist believes the infrastructure has come first.
Swinburne did the exact opposite. He took an unscalable shortcut. He just needed to prove one thing. Would a customer exchange money for a pair of shoes? Sight unseen.
And how he did it is, I mean, it's almost comical. Our sources detail this concierge MVP he ran.
It was not elegant at all. It was pure manual labor. Nick Swinburne literally went to local shoe stores,
Took pictures of their shoes.
posted those pictures on a super simple website, and told the store owners, hey, if I sell a pair, I'll come back and buy it from you at full retail price.
So think about that process. A customer orders on its website. Nick gets the email, drives to the store, buys the shoe, goes home, packages it, and ships it himself.
It's clumsy, it's inefficient, he's making zero profit.
It's completely hilariously unscalable.
And that is the genius of it. That manual effort bypassed all the theoretical debate. It proved behavior, not opinions. Customers proved the core transaction was possible, even if the mechanics behind it were a total mess.
He exposed his idea to market reality on day one.
And this manual process gave him 3 things that the perfectionist, polishing in a locked room, can never get. First, truth over theory. He learned what customers actually do, not what they say they'll do.
Second, fast iteration. Because he was the entire fulfillment system, he saw every single point of friction instantly.
And third, maybe most important, operational clarity. He discovered the real problems: sizing issues, shipping returns, photo quality, all the yoke moments. He learned those pain points before he spent a fortune building a system to solve imaginary problems.
He avoided that classic mistake of confusing professional with proven. Professional looks good and is scalable. Proven means it survives contact with a real customer and validates the core idea.
And this gives us a powerful maxim: manual first, automate later. If you can't deliver the outcome for 5 people by hand, you have no business trying to build a machine to deliver it to 5,000.
Your personal effort is a cheap stand-in for the future machine. It lets you debug the process before you build a product.
So the tactic for you, the learner, is to run that concierge MVP. Don't build the platform yet. Personally deliver the core value for your first 5 or 10 customers.
And while you're doing it, your job isn't just to make sales, it's to track friction. Every time you groan and think, oh, this part is so annoying, or this takes forever.
That's a roadmap item. That's the next thing you need to automate. Those moments of pain define your real priorities.
And you have to set a boundary for this phase. You can't do it forever. I will do this by hand for 10 customers or for 2 weeks, and then I stop, analyze, and begin the redesign.
If you can't deliver it by hand for 10, you're not ready to scale it to 1,000. It forces brutal clarity on what your core value actually is.
Okay, so we've seen shipping code early, drafting aggressively, testing with fake doors, and manual fulfillment. Now we look at 2 examples that are all about communicating value simply.
What's fascinating here is that the focus shifts a little. It's less about will they pay and more about will they even understand what this is, and does it solve a problem right away?
We start with Dropbox and the challenge of selling something that felt like magic.
It's March 2008. Drew Houston has this product that really is magical: seamless file syncing. You drop a file in a folder and it just appears on your other devices.
But magic is really hard to explain with words. If you just list the features, version control, remote access people are just skeptical. They have email and thumb drives. Why is this better?
The risk wasn't that the product had rough edges. The risk was that nobody would get the aha moment fast enough to even sign up.
So the perfectionist would say, polish the product until it's flawless to eliminate all doubt. But Houston chose to polish the explanation first. The product was still in development. The explanation had to be perfect.
The solution was a simple 3-minute demo video. It didn't list features. It showed the experience of seamless syncing. It showed the magic trick.
That alone was a huge step. But the real genius was in the targeting. He didn't just make one video.
He made a second video tailored specifically for the early adopter communities, the tech crowd on sites like Dig and Reddit.
And what was different about it?
He sprinkled in little Easter eggs, quick references to things only that community would get, a subtle XKCD comic reference, a technical joke.
What's the shoe?
It was a signal.
A signal that said, I'm one of you, I get you, and I built this magic specifically for you.
It created this instant, powerful connection with the exact group of people most likely to forgive bugs and give great feedback.
And the result was explosive. A minimal effort artifact, a video, produced a massive outcome. The waitlist for Dropbox jumped from 5,000 to 75,000 in a single day.
And that proves this incredible principle. Ship the explanation before you ship the perfection. The video validated huge demand and created conviction, and it required almost no code.
It let the market vote on the idea before the product was complete.
The takeaway for you is to define your magic moment sentence. It has to be crystal clear. When you do this simple action, you instantly get this profound result. If you can't describe that moment simply, you can't demo it, and you're not ready to build it at scale. Polish the promise before you polish the product.
The parallel example here is Basecamp, the project management tool. If Dropbox showed the power of the simple demo, Basecamp showed the power of shipping simple utility.
Right. Jason Fried's company, 37 Signals, launched it back on February 5, 2004.
And like a lot of great tools, it started as an internal solution for their own problem. They were a web design firm, and they were just drowning in email chains and project confusion.
So their launch was this controlled, confident leap. They offered a free Option 1 project for free write alongside the paid plans from day one.
This is so key. They weren't waiting for the product to be complete in some abstract way. They were letting the customers define what complete meant for their own needs. If it solved their email problem on one free project, it was useful enough.
And that gives us another core principle to fight perfectionism. Done means useful enough to be used, not complete enough to be admired.
When you ship usefulness, it forces you to prioritize. You only build what facilitates that immediate utility. And it exposes you to reality. If people start using it, they will tell you exactly what they need next.
Jason Fried has this great line, "A plan is simply a guess you wrote down." When you launch usefulness early, the market dictates the plan through its actions. You stop guessing what to build next and start responding to actual usage.
And the proof is in the business model. About a year after that first release, Basecamp was making enough money that 37 Signals could stop their web design work entirely.
They pivoted the whole company to focus on the software. It was the ultimate economic validation for shipping early utility.
So if we connect these two, both Dropbox and Basecamp prove that the first step has to solve a problem simply, even if it feels incomplete. You ship something that lets the customer experience the value and signal their intent.
Whether that signal is joining a massive waitlist or starting a free trial that makes them realize they need to pay for more. Both prioritize action over planning.
Okay, so we've looked at 6 really distinct examples across different decades, different domains, but they all point in the exact same direction.
Yeah, the trade-off is always the same. It's between your comfort right now and your success in the future.
Let's quickly synthesize these 6 insights. First, we had Linus Torvalds and the courage to share unfinished code, using that just a hobby armor to lower his ego stakes.
He shipped the function to get collaborators.
Then Chris Beatty and NaNoWriMo, the courage to write badly, prioritizing momentum over quality.
He shipped the words to get velocity.
Then we had Buffer and Zappos, Joel Gascoigne and Nick Swinburne, the courage to test willingness to pay before the product was even built.
Focusing on proof over polish and running things manual over automated to get that essential high-quality data.
And finally, Drew Houston at Dropbox and Jason Fried at Basecamp, the courage to ship the simple utility and the explanation of value before scaling the full product.
They were making sure they were building something people actually understood and desperately wanted.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner? The contrast between the two mindsets is just so stark. The default perfectionist habit is all about protecting your identity.
Right. It screams, I must be good so I can never release anything that has a flaw.
The done-over-perfect habit, on the other hand, is designed to protect the process.
It insists, I must learn and I must finish, so I have to release something flawed quickly so that reality can correct me.
It's a fundamental shift. You stop defending your ego, and you start maximizing your learning rate.
And this change, it's not about being careless, it's about being strategically brave.
Yeah.
You're deliberately trading the comfort of a project living safely on your computer.
For the messy but exhilarating reality of it existing out in the world, and you now have the tools to make that trade.
So let's review the most applicable micro steps, things you can do in the next few days to break the cycle. First, the Torvalds NaNoWriMo principle. Pick one deliverable you can ship or share in the next 72 hours.
And make the scope ridiculously small. A GitHub repo with just the readim file, the first 1,000 words of your essay, the single thesis slide, of your presentation. Ship the minimum thing that shows your intent.
Second, the buffer principle. Create a fake door test, a simple landing page with an action button that measures serious intent. For a book idea, the button says pre-order now. For a business, it's a form for serious beta testers. Require a micro commitment.
And third, the Zappos principle. Fulfill the core transaction manually for your first 5 customers. Use your own time and effort as the stand-in for the future machine, and track every single UGG moment. That frictionless becomes your roadmap.
That's how you break the paralysis. You stop trying to prevent every possible failure in your head, and you start inviting reality to teach you what actually matters.
Because reality, the market, the customer, the community, they are the only ones who can tell you what's truly valuable. Your job is to make that introduction happen as fast as humanly possible.
The final charge to you, the learner, is this. If you wait for perfection, you are often optimizing for your own comfort rather than the market's need.
So what does this all mean? It means your responsibility isn't to protect your ego. It's to execute your idea into existence so the learning can begin. Now go execute.